Heart and Soul miniseries, Adventurelands, Part 31. They all paced about nervously, trying to decide what to do. They couldn't simply enter the house of one of the five families uninvited. That would be tantamount to suicide. But they also didn't have much of a choice. If they couldn't follow Weasel, he could tell anyone about that library, maybe even the demon. Cat seemed to believe that possibility was far more dangerous than invading the house with no intel. By the time I noticed that she wasn't standing next to me anymore, she was already inside the front gates. She seemed to have activated some kind of innate skill because she casually walked into the building as if she owned the place. It was so strangely convincing that when she reached the inner guard station, they just waved to her as if they'd known her their entire lives. No one made a move to intercept or even follow her. It was all too easy to believe that she belonged there and anywhere else she chose to go. She didn't even acknowledge the guards, and somehow it only proved to strengthen the certainty that she should be there. The rest of us were too stunned to try following at first. Then reason took over, and we all stayed put because none of the rest of us could do anything like that. She walked into the building as though she'd been there 100 times before, though without Canine to lead her, I had no idea how she was finding her way around inside the building. The longer she was inside, the more nervous I became. After she'd been inside for a few long moments and no blaring alarms started to sound, I exhaled a sigh of relief that I hadn't even noticed myself holding on to. A moment later, it began to seem as though my relief was some kind of an irresistible lure for evil. Right on cue, we heard a nearby bellow, so unmistakable it could only be the demon's monster. Canine and I both rushed in the direction the sound had come from. A few of the guards from the manor followed behind us. As we approached the monster, it was smaller this time, less than half the size it had been the last few times I'd seen it, though it was no less ferocious. If anything, it seemed like being crammed into a smaller body had made it exponentially more furious. It noticed me almost the moment I saw it. In that instant, its rage tripled, and all of its focus was directed at me. Then it charged. All five of its large, now crown-like horns seemed to focus on my heart. I was terrified. I didn't think I could have been more surprised to see what happened next. Firstly, as the monster was rearing in on me, out of nowhere one of the guards jumped in between us. All five of the monster's hard horns gored the man. His screams were the sound of agony as the monster tried to shake his corpse off the crown of horns. Luckily for us, his armor seemed to have gotten stuck, so the monster couldn't shake him off easily. Seeing an opening, Canine cast an attack spell the likes of which I'd never seen before. Suddenly, he was the magic wolf from his spell at the training grounds. Then, in a flash, he was on the monster. His massive, semi-illusionary teeth snapped down on the monster's throat, doing their best to find some purchase on his thick neck. However, no matter how hard he tried, his teeth would not penetrate into its flesh. His jaws just felt like trying to block to his jaws. It felt like trying to bite a block of iron. The monster bellowed again, and in one mighty heave he threw both of them off at once. Then, shifting all his focus back to me, he charged. Now, with the guard's mangled corpse and Canine bloodied, bruised, and beaten, I was the angry one, and I was ready. I whipped out my controller, pulled on all the magic I had in me, cleared my mind, and pushed the A button.